Hello YouTubers, Nico Club members, this is Wiggler, trying to show you the knock sensor replacement video tutorial in reverse order. As you can see, I've gotten everything taken apart. Here is the right knock sensor harness right in here, and this wire right here is the left harness, and it's going underneath this coolant pipe. I'm not going to take this off because this is the 5th time I'm getting in here, and the only purpose for me to access all this was to replace this the actual harness here with connections to the EGR solenoid vacuum valve right down here. You can see this one, this actually malfunctioned, so I replaced it, and also the harness along with it because it was not getting a proper signal to the left bank of cylinders, that knock sensor. So I was throwing a code. So what we're going to do now is the painstaking task of reassembling everything. And if you're starting on the other end when you're taking everything apart, then you can just follow these steps in reverse order. Okay. I'm going to do a few things, and then I'm going to go ahead and stop the video and explain to you what I did. Okay. As far as connections of hoses and everything like that, I'll just go along with that, try to point out everything that I'm doing as I'm doing it. And this is for the 1997 through 2001 Infiniti Q45 VH41DE model. Rather rare engine, but if you have a little bit of technical know-how, and by watching this video, I hope that you'll gain a lot and be able to do this task yourself and save well over $1,000 in the process. Okay, alrighty, so let's stop here and I will be back. One of the things you really want to do when you're performing a repair like this with lots of nuts and bolts, hoses and so forth, is to get one of these fishing tackle boxes or something similar and label every section that you can. If you're like me and you're messy, then this is almost a necessity. Just label every section, put bolts in there as appropriate so you can easily access them later. Here I've got my fuel injector cushion rings, which are really important. I happened to lose one of those the very first time I did this repair, and so I had to order them online. And also these, which are the fuel rail bolt securing little plastic spacers. So yeah, keep these in a safe place as soon as you pull off the lower intake manifold. The lower intake runner. It is critical that you do not lose these because you're going to be in a world of hurt, trust me. So make an organized little fishing tackle box for everything. As you can see, I've labeled things in a logical manner with a label maker. Go get yourself a label maker too. Okay, so that's just one housekeeping rule that I wanted to share with you first. Okay, at this point I've got the lower intake manifold put back on again. That's the only thing I've done so far. It's a little bit tricky. There's a lot of hoses in here, so you have to move the hoses, wiring harnesses out the way, and when you're done you can snake them back through the little legs here to get them to where they need to be. One thing I would advise you to do also, when you replace your runner gaskets, which you should do when you're doing this job, when you replace them, try to find a method to hold them together to the bottom of the runners, because they will tend to get misaligned when you're trying to reposition this thing. So what I've done myself is to use some high temperature silicone gasket sealer. Seems to do the trick, and then it'll just kind of, like, you know, turn into like a rubbery adhesive once the engine reaches temperature, once you start it up again. So that's what I would do, because these gaskets underneath here, they keep falling, and you can't see them because they're underneath, but they're right here, right underneath this piece right here. So I would really recommend that you invest a few dollars in that. Now I'm going to start making some connections, and I'll be back with the video a little later to show you what I've done. Okay, so what I've done now is I've put the driver's side fuel rail assembly in. Haven't tightened anything yet. What I did is I put the fuel rail bolt spacer, bracket spacers in here underneath this. Here, right here, I don't know if you can see it, there, and there. Okay, and the fuel injector cushion rings are under each fuel injector. Remember those rubber rings I showed you about? You should be able to feel it when the injectors are properly seated inside there. They give you a nice little excuse me, a nice little little squishy sound, or like you should feel it when they're like snug. You kind of have to wiggle some hoses to get this through here. This thing. There's this big, very big, some kind of fuel vapor line here. It's not coolant, and then the other part of the fuel rail line that goes through underneath, snakes underneath the manifold. A little tricky to reconnect, but the one thing that I recommend you do after you the first time you take it off is, instead of using the spring clamps again, go out and buy yourself a set of these screw clamps, fuel injection clamps. You'll be very much more happier, and you know, a lot more you'll be able to take the hoses off, the fuel hoses off, without having to cut them, which unfortunately the first time you may have to cut the fuel hose lines that go underneath the lower intake manifold just to get it off, and it's unfortunate, but you know, by this stage they probably need replacing anyway, so not a bad idea. I'm going to come back and we're going to have the other side assembled here in a little bit, and hopefully we'll connect the both rails together with the fuel lines and have all the injectors connected too electrically. Okay, so basically what we've done at this point is we've seated the runner in place. There is 16 of these. You can see here this bolt, and this bolt. There's 16 of those runner bolts. Very important you don't lose them all. What we're going to do now, and I actually had to unseat the fuel injector rail on the driver's side because it allows me proper access to all the bolts on both sides of the runners to torque them down. And that brings me to our next point. Make sure that you follow the proper torquing sequence in the field service manual. It is listed. Right now I don't have my laptop with me, so I couldn't tell you what page it's on, but I believe it's in the engine mechanical section, and you'll find a picture with a bird's eye overhead view of the intake runner. You'll recognize it. It looks just like the picture here, and then it'll have the proper torquing sequence for each bolt, and the two sets of steps that you have to follow to get them in done. Once again, I want to make sure that you do take great care with the fuel injector cushion rings. You can see them underneath the fuel injectors right there, the little black little square. Make sure you take good care of those, and because if you don't have those properly safeguarded, then you run the risk of having a possible engine fire if you install them without. They're crucial. You have to have them because they keep the fuel spray in the combustion chamber. The other thing is that these plastic little spacers for the bolts for the fuel rails to secure them, they're also critical. Otherwise you won't get the proper torque necessary for the fuel rail. Do make sure that you take great care not to bend the fuel rails, otherwise you will once again be in a world of hurt. And then you'll have to buy a whole new fuel rail, which costs about $300. If you happen to lose the fuel injector cushion rings, Infinity will not sell you just the fuel cushion ring. You'll have to buy an entire side of the fuel injector just to get them. But fortunately, you can get them from carparts.com or Parts Train, I think is the name of the parent's company that stocks them. I think the company that makes them is a company called Ishino out of Japan. But yeah, you can get them. They're just a little hard to find, but I've given you the resource to get them. So with that in mind, what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and torque down all of these bolts down here. Okay, so we tightened all the bolts on the runners to spec, all these bolts underneath. I'm not sure if you can see them all 16 of them. And now it's time to tighten the fuel rail bolts, the fuel rails to the manifold for the injectors. So I'll come back and once we have all that secure, oh, and then also connect the fuel lines. And once we have that secure, then we'll reconvene and I'll show you what I've done. Okay, now you can see that we have gone ahead and attached the bolts for the fuel bracket, and we've connected all the fuel injector connectors, and they're all ready to go. The passenger side is a little bit more trickier, only because there's a lot more hoses on this side and you have to clear them out the way, but overall it's you can get it, and so it's not too bad. For the fuel line, pardon the wobbling, for the fuel line, you can see we've used one of those screw clamps right here. You can see that gold fuel line coming in through the bottom there with that screw clamp there on the top, and also right here on the bottom. A little bit hard to see, but that's the fuel line coming in through there to the fuel rail. Okay, so we've secured the fuel rails, and also the back. There's a back bracket over here. We secured that as well. So the next thing we need to do is slowly apply the upper plenum, or put the upper plenum in place, and then put this throttle cable block, attach it to the upper plenum, upper air intake collector. So I'll come back and I'll do that. Okay, so as you can see, we've got the upper plenum on. I've connected a few hoses in the back over here. I'm not sure if you can see them. They're underneath the EGR valve. There's some coolant hose and the vacuum hose over there in the back. One thing I want to point out is when you're taking everything apart, you really want to be careful with this bolt right over here. And sorry about the shaking. It's right here. This bolt right here, because it's the EGR valve coming from the exhaust, the EGR feedback. This bolt, the first time you take it out, it's going to be very hard to take out. Okay. So what I recommend doing is putting some PB Blaster or rust breaker on it, letting it sit overnight, and then coming back to it tomorrow. So once you've reached this stage in disassembly, that's what I would do, is just wait until the morning for that to kick in, and then get yourself a 30mm wrench. It's rather large. I'll show you right here. You want to get a, excuse me, 30mm wrench. It's rather large, and this will fit the bolt exactly. I don't know if you want to try it. You can try to take your luck with the non-metric wrenches, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would try go out and buy this from Sears, or order it from online from Summit Racing Tools or other specialty hardware shop. Home Depot and all these other run-of-the-mill hardware stores probably won't carry it. So you're better off just looking for it elsewhere. Sears is the best place if you can't find anything else nearby, or order it online if you have some time and you're planning on doing this beforehand. We're going to connect some hoses, and then we're going to put the breather tubing rail on top here, and I'll rejoin you when I'm done there. And I'm going to connect the throttle cable block right over there to this part of the upper intake manifold. Okay, so we got the throttle cable block put on there. As you can see, it's got 3 bolts. One's right here, this 12mm. There's another one right there. You can barely see it. There it is. And then there's another one right underneath there, right there. There it is. So it's 12mm bolts. I just tightened them, just snug tightened them. I didn't like torque them down or anything like that. The upper bolts, you do want to tighten those, like this one right here. No, wait, that's not one. That one right there. This one, the one on the top right there. That one. Those you do want to torque down to the proper spec. So anyway, just torque them down. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try to get this big contraption. I'm not sure what it's for. I'm sure there's a name for it. But this whole thing has to be secured right here with these 2 bolts that are coming out right here. These 2 right here. And it's probably a good idea to just keep the bolts in the threads where they are, so you don't lose them a lot of these times, because you're going to run out of things to name for the specific location. So if you can't figure out what the location name is and you can't print a label, I would just leave them in the threads that they came out of in the apparatus. And then also this is the EGRC, exhaust gas recirculation control valve. We're going to mount that back too, and I've kept those bolts. Okay, sorry, lost you for a second there. But these two bolts right in here, these bolts are the bolts that secure the EGRC valve to the upper intake plenum, and there's the EGRC valve. Want to just make sure that that's secured on there also. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to come right back. Okay, so you can see we connected this big, what I called the contraption there with those two bolts right there on that bracket. You see those two 12mm bolts. And I secured the EGRC back pressure valve, and you can kind of see it there, right there. That's right here is where it is. That's the EGRC back pressure valve to the exhaust control recirculation valve right over here. You can kind of see how this is coming together. There's some hoses still here to connect. Once I get the breather tubing assembly rail in, then that will all come together. I replaced this hose coming out of here, because I had some extra hose. So I thought, why the hell not? Just replace some of these hoses. They're starting to get cracked. They still tend to go inside properly, but in their respective places. But some of them are kind of like getting brittle. So I do like to replace them, again. One thing that I would recommend you to have is try to get yourself a and where is it? Trying to look. Ah, here it is. Try to get yourself just a regular. If you don't have air tools, just get yourself a regular electric screwdriver cord with some little nut driver attachments and basic basic metric hex attachments slots. So then you can go ahead and it makes a little short work of getting the screws threaded into place snug, and also removing them. That way you don't have to sit there with the ratcheting tool forever trying to get that thing out. So these things cut down the time a little bit, and they make you less tired also. So you have more chance to make a video like me. Anyway, kind of see how it's coming together. We got a little bit more to do. We got to put the throttle body on, and then the air cleaner assembly also. The good thing is that you don't have to take the whole air cleaner box out. Some people do, but you don't have to, as long as you can twist the tubing that's coming out of this the mass airflow sensor tubing right here. You should be able to just take it out without having to take the whole box out. For some of us who have K&N air filters, that can get kind of messy because of the oil starts dripping out of the filter. And the other thing is that you notice that I did not remove the wiring harness either. That's a big plus. You kind of have to scoot it out the way. There's some clips and attachments that you can release, and you can kind of, it does give a little bit, so you can have some room to sneak your tools in up and around it stuff. So, but the big engine wiring harness needn't be removed. I removed it the first time. It was a pain in the butt to put back together again, and I was afraid I might break some connectors. So turns out I've broken a connector already. It's this thing right here that connects to right over here. You can't see it. Sorry, whoops, slipped there. But it's part of a temperature sensing thing that's connected to the coolant valve. So I'm just going to go ahead and resolder that, because you don't have to get anything fancy dancy. You don't have to buy a new sensor or probe. You can just solder the thing. So anyway, I'll be back once I've got the throttle body on. Okay, back again. Sorry, next day. I had to stop the other day. But as you can see, we've connected the breather tubing, which is all right here, all the hoses and connections. One thing I do want to stress is there's a small radiator hose underneath here. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's this one right in here. This right here. This one can get away from you. This is the radiator hose that connects coolant to the throttle body, and you want to try to make sure that you connect this right away as soon as you put the upper plenum on, because it might get a little tight once you put the breather tubing back on and connect it. So just make sure that you connect that, otherwise you'll add coolant back to the coolant reservoir, and it'll all be dripping out onto the engine everywhere, and then it'll drip down below and cause a mess on your garage floor or wherever you're doing it. But anyway, you can see there's a bunch of hoses over here, and I got to put the clamps on those two big hoses right there, but these are all breather tubing hoses. Make sure you connect every single one of them. I did replace this hose because I had some extra. Replaced this with a auto parts store. It's always good to replace hoses when you can. I just had some extra left over, so I replaced it with what I had. So, and then also you can see that I've resoldered this connection tip for this radiator thing. I didn't want to buy a new little machine or little sensor in there, because the sensor works. It's just this connector that broke. So if you're handy with a soldering iron, and I have a portable butane one, then you might as well do that. You know, it's worth it. You might call me cheap. I don't care. You can call me cheap if you want, but I like to think of myself as economical. So there's that. We're gonna get the throttle body back on right over there here in just a minute, and we'll be back. There's a few coolant hoses we gotta connect. This one right here, and then that's the other end, and a bunch of various electrical connectors, and I'll be back and I'll connect those and I'll show you. Okay, so at this point we're putting the throttle body back on. You want to thread these bolts by hand just to get them snug in the middle, or in the outset. You got 1, 2, 3, and then 4. I'm going to put the third bolt on, and then it's a little hard to see, but with a little bit of practice, you can get it. It's not too difficult. Okay, well, I got that third one in already. Never mind. I'm trying to put another bolt in. But thread them by hand like this, just to get them snug. And there you go. There's that one. The last one is unfortunately a little bit tricky because you can't see anything that you're doing. So what I've done here is to apply a little bit of electrical tape to the edge of the washer of that bolt, so that way it doesn't keep falling into the crevice, into the V of the engine. Another tool that you will need to invest in, and this is a broken one, is a magnetic pickup tool. You will use this like more than 4 or 5 times during this entire procedure, because you'll lose many bolts going inside, and they'll fall back into the very bottom of the valley between the V, and it's just invaluable. Otherwise, you'll have to take apart a lot of things just to get that bolt out that you might have lost. But anyway, here goes. You're gonna thread it in gently. You know what? I'm just gonna do this, and then I'm gonna torque it down, and I'm gonna give you the specs. Okay? So just sit tight. Okay, so it took a few tries for me to get this bolt in, but I finally got it in, and I'm just snug tightening it right now just to make sure it's snug. I will not lie to you, that bulb or that bolt will cause you a lot of grief and headache. What I find helpful to do is to position myself directly above that top bolt, and then look down so I can at least make sure that it's in line vertically. That seems to help a little bit, but you have no visibility at all for this bottom bolt. Okay, pretty much from the top you can't see that hole that goes into the upper plenum, the upper air collector, to find out how to thread it. So you just really have to feel around a lot. Now we're going to torque these down, and let me get my torque tool here. I'm going to be right back because I need to now find out what the torque specs are, and that's on my laptop. So give me just a second. Okay, so I looked in my laptop and found out what the torque specs are. This is the front of the car. The tightening sequence for the throttle body is as follows. If you're looking at the butterfly valves from this angle, from the driver's side of the car, what you're going to do is you're gonna tighten first the upper right, then lower left, lower right, the hard bolt, and then upper left, in that order. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4. The first time around, you want to tighten these to 8 foot-pounds, and then in the second order, you want to tighten them to 22 foot-pounds. So that's what we're going to do right now. Oops, wrong way. And that looks to be about 8 foot-pounds right there. There. If you have a click style torque wrench, that does make things a little easier, but I don't think that they go down low to 8 foot-pounds. I think the lowest torque setting on there was 25 or something like that. So you might want to just invest in a beam style torque wrench like this for the first part of it. Or what you can do is convert it to inch-pounds, or inch-pound conversion if you're handy with a calculator, and then go from there. Okay, so we've tightened everything to 8 foot-pounds. Now we're going to go to 22. Okay, so there it is. Once again, with a beam style torque wrench, you don't have the ability to check for clicking, but you have to really keep a close eye on the dial, and on the dial of this. Sorry, not sure if you can see it. Put it up there. Yeah, on the foot-pounds section of the wrench. A little tiring. Okay. One other thing I want to stop and show you is these electrical connectors right over here are a little bit tricky. This one right here. You'll encounter a few of those electrical connectors. On the road to the bottom, and the way you want to handle those electrical connectors is as follows. You want to get yourself a flat blade screwdriver, and never try to pull it like this straight out. This is a special type of spring-loaded connector. It's got a little arrow imprinted on there where the tip of the screwdriver is. You can't see it, but all you do is you put your little flat blade end of the screwdriver into it like this, and then you push down, and then in like that. And then once you release, it's locked and the spring is released, it'll pop right off by itself. See that? So you don't even need to do anything, apply any extra force except to push that tab in. And then to put it back in, all you do is you push it. Don't put your finger on this, okay? Just push on the outward side of the connector like that. And then once it clicks out like that, you heard that click, then it's secure. And, well, it should have been secure. Let's try that again. Oh, apparently that one's broken. Never mind, I'll fix it, but that's how you do those electrical connectors. Okay, we're almost done, getting close. This snorkel is going to require a little bit of wriggling. And don't be too concerned about, you know, damaging it. It's just plastic. I don't think that it's very hard plastic, actually. So you still want to try to be generally careful, but you know, you really sometimes you kind of have to force this in a little bit. You know, like you have to kind of push down on this because there's a bolt here, a grounding bolt that kind of gets in the way of the bottom pocket that's attached to the snorkel. Once you got it in, make sure it's properly connected to the mass airflow sensor down here, and then just tighten that bolt. Tighten this bolt, and then I've gotten I lost the original clamp, so I just went to a hardware store. Probably not a good idea, but it's enough for just the airflow. Just attach two clamps together and then tighten them. So anyway, so let's tighten them. There we go. Okay, now I need an 8mm. And it appears as though that's going to cause a little bit of a problem. But okay, I wanted to show you that this electrical connector is unfortunately damaged, and it comes off easily, but it sits on there snug with just the pressure of the connector itself, so if you haven't damaged it, then it should be good to go. Unfortunately, on a car that's 14 years old, some of this plastic is going to get brittle over the years, and it's just going to crack. That's the nature of things. But hopefully it's just not too bad to where, you know, you have to replace the whole entire, like for example, engine harness that this would be a part of. A couple of other things. I'm just gonna go ahead and just get the strut brace on right over here. Attach these throttle cable hooks to there, like so. You can't see, sorry. Right over here, these throttle cable blocks, and then put the air intake collector in the air intake thing right here that goes right along the side of the thing. So I'll just reconvene at that time. Okay, so I've got the strut brace on, 17mm bolts. Use a drill attachment if you can, or just torque them down, that's fine. So the strut brace is on, very important you put that back on. And the air intake cover, the intake part of the snorkel, anyway, whatever you want to call this, I don't care. I'd like to give a shout out to all the members at Nico. First of all, Paranoid Jack for helping me. PJ, thanks a lot for helping me do this the first time. Skibane, I don't know what part of San Antonio you're in, but give me a PM me sometime. Maybe we can grab a brewski and talk some shop. San Carlos Q45, Bad Q45T, El Hueso, all of these guys on Nico, and even Max Witch. Thanks a lot for your help too. And I hope this has been informational and educational, and it's not an overly daunting task. Once again, you don't have to go out and buy like really super expensive snap-on tools or anything like that for this job. Most of the tools I buy are from Walmart, Home Depot, and things like that, but just make sure you buy the right tools. In closing, one other thing I'd like to say, with these hose clamps, it's probably a good idea to buy a set of right angle needle nose pliers if you have them. I have a pair, but as you can see, my garage is kind of like really a big mess all over the place. So I don't know where they are, but I'm sure they're around here somewhere. So I'll probably find them when I don't need them. Anyway, that's all for my video. Hope you've enjoyed it, or at least gotten something out of it. Good luck to all of you guys who own a second generation Q45 97 through 05. I hope that you can use this video to help you replace the knock sensors, which is the main primary objective for this video, and clean out any other things along the way, and just replace any hoses. So this is Wiggler signing out.